How is everybody doing? It's Ken Lewis. Welcome to Mixing Night. So I've been doing these Q&A with Kens. I'm rebranding the whole thing from now on. The YouTube channel is going to be Mixing Night. The show is going to be Mixing Night. I'm going to do a little bit longer show and a little less frequently, every 2 weeks for about 2 hours. We'll see how that goes tonight. So I've done a ton of prep for this. I've got a ton of stuff to show you guys, but I'm a little bit scattered with the way it's going to all lay out tonight. So I may be a little wandery in my delivery tonight, but there's going to be some really cool stuff. So before I jump into this sprint mix, I'll run down what's on the show tonight. Lots of stuff on mono, stereo, and panning. I'm going to cover a bunch of stuff with DAW examples, including how do I pan background vocals and put them in the stereo field, and how many background vocals do I choose, and all of those kinds of things. What else is on the show tonight? I'm going to start with Skrizzly Adams' tipping point for the sprint mix, and Skrizzly is going to join us about 8:30, which is about a half an hour from now. He's going to perform his new single, Too Close to Fire, produced by Catalyst. Catalyst is me and Brent Colatalo, my production partner. So Too Close to Fire comes out on Friday for Skriz. We're super excited about it. And he's going to come onto the show tonight and play a stripped-down version for all of you guys. And so that's going to be in about a half an hour. What else? I got vocal stuff, distortion stuff on vocals. It's going to be a jam-packed show. But I'm going to get into the sprint mixes first, and then I'll get into everything else. So I've put up on the screen what the sprint mixing is, why I do it, why I created it. And so you guys have some idea as I'm doing it, what the basic goals are. So, okay, so where's my phone? 10 minutes on the timer. Faders down to finished in 10 minutes. Hell of a way to start the show. I'm going to be pretty super mentally drained after this one. But, you know, fuck it. All right, 10 minutes on the clock. We got Skrizzly Adams' tipping point. He's going to be here in about a half an hour to perform live. Let me see if I can put my money where my mouth is. Boom, 10 minutes. You notice in under a minute, I have a good, healthy amount of my instruments in. Now, if I was doing a full final mix for real, that would probably happen in about the first 10 to 15 minutes, and then I would refine from there. All right, back to sprinting.
In the driveway was soul that was broken, and a heart that's been beaten. I don't love you now like you loved me then. Was it so the beginning of the end? Is this the tipping point? Fly down the parkway, find faith in the driveway was soul that was dead. Was it so the beginning of of the end. Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls to shove and you had enough and you don't want me around. Car and quick cut the end. I put the key in if it's in your heart. Make one reason to fire it up and keep me believing. Just park the car and quick cut the engines. We stop when I put my key in if I'm in your heart. Give me car and quick cut the engine. See if it's and I put the key in if it's in. I think give me one reason to. When push calls to shove and you've had enough and you don't want me around. Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls to shove you need someone to love, cause I won't be around. Yeah, is this the tipping point? Gotta fly down the park with my faith in the drive wheels. All that was broken and a heart that's been beating. I don't love you now like you loved me then. Was it sort of beginning of the end? Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls to shove and you've had enough and you don't want me around. Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls to shove, you need someone to love, cause I won't be around. Yeah, is this the tipping point? Gotta fly down the park with my faith in the drive wheels. All that was broken and a heart that's been beating. I don't love you now like you loved me then. Was it so the beginning of the end? Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls to shove and you've had enough and you don't want me around. Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls to shove you need someone to love, cause I won't be around. Yeah, is this the tipping point? Gotta fly down the park with my faith in the drive wheels. All that was broken and a heart that's been beating. Yeah, I don't care about you, just thought that we could get along. It was high on a feeling, I said I'd be there at 5:35, but I was wrong. Fly down the park with my faith in the drive wheels. All that was broken and a heart that's been. Don't love you like you loved me then. Was it so beginning of the end? Is this the tipping point? Where the motor gives out. When push calls, you we've lost control. Is this the tipping point? When push comes to shove, you need stop what love, 'cause I won't be around. Yeah, is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point? When the motor gives out. When push comes to shove, you need stop what love, 'cause I won't be around. Yeah, is this the tipping point? Gotta lie. Is this the tipping point? When the motor gives out. When push comes to shove, you need stop what love, 'cause I won't be around. Yeah, is this the tipping point? Gotta lie and say that we've lost control. When we park the car, thinking they want a reason to fire it up. This is the tipping point. Cause the motor gave out. Can't see if it starts when I put the key in. If it's in my heart, then give me one reason to fire it up and keep me believing. Park the car and the engine. See if it stops when I put the key in. If it's in my heart, then give me one reason to fire it up and keep me believing. Just park the car and quit, cut our engine. See if it stops when I.
That's it. All right. So if you would like to hear my fully finished, I'll play you a little bit of that before I move on. But if you would like to hear my fully finished mix, you can check it out on Spotify, on Skrizzly Adams' Spotify page. The song is called Tipping Point. We released it on Atlantic Records, I think, 3-4 years ago. Super dope song. My other favorite Skrizzly songs, if you want to check them out, are Me and You, Young Man. And I totally forgot. Yesterday, we just got the best news ever. So, Skrizzly Adams, again, he's going to be on the program in about 15 minutes, maybe 20. We've been producing him for a really long time. He's completely independent, used to be on a major label. I think everybody's much happier on the independent route. Skrizzly has aggregated 88 million streams as an independent artist, and he's pretty well known in Europe, and we just found out yesterday, or Skrizzly just told me yesterday and gave me a plaque that his single Dance with Darkness went gold in Switzerland. So he had a Swiss gold record plaques made up and dropped it on my doorstep yesterday. So, super proud of Skrizzly. Congratulations, dude. Dance with Darkness, gold in Switzerland. We're hoping Germany and Austria are next. And his next single, Too Close to Fire, drops Friday, and it is a banger. We have very high hopes for that song. So, stay tuned and check out. If you check out Skrizzly on Spotify, follow him. And when you see him pop up in your feed on Friday, definitely give Too Close to Fire a listen and save it to your playlists and give it a heart and all that other shit. All that stuff helps feed the Spotify algorithms. If you want to know how to get your stuff into like playlists and get Spotify to pick your stuff up and do well, anytime somebody listens, Spotify is basically paying attention. How long did you listen? What are all the parameters? Did you save it? Did you add it to a playlist? All of these different things. So please check it out. Okay, I'm going to go to Q&A. Jake Rodriguez, all the way from Sydney, Australia, ask, Jake, I'm going to get back to your question in a second. No, that is not my 100. Because it's Switzerland. It's not America. I only count my American plaques for my, the question was, I have 99 gold records. Is that my 100th? No, because that's a Swiss gold record. I don't know how many gold records I have in Switzerland, but I don't really, I don't count those towards the running total, or I would have like 1,000. All right. I think BTS is probably going to be my next plaque. The BTS Map of the World 7 Shadow has got to be gold by now, and they're just not certifying. It's driving me nuts, but I'm guessing BTS is my 100th. Jake Rodriguez, all the way from Sydney, Australia. Hey, Jake. Hope you're joining us this morning in Australia. What's your approach for bouncing your whole mix once you're happy with it? Do you have an Aux channel as your master track where you send all your channels and buses? Okay, Jake. This is what I do. If it's in the box, I just set a loop around whatever the start and the finish of the song is. I'm going to be real quick and dirty with this. So let's see. It's probably... Okay. And then you can hit bounce. I think it's Option Command B. Brings this up, and this is what I think you need to know. I always bounce interleaved, 24-bit, 44.1, or I just keep the same bit and sample rate as the session. So if the session came in at 96K 32-bit, that's how they're going to get their mix back. That's how I keep the session, all of that stuff. But the other part of your question, Jake, about is about routing. And when I'm on the SSL, this is what happens. I'll try and walk you through it real quick. Everything starts in Pro Tools. Everything leaves Pro Tools and goes through some channel on the SSL. I usually keep the most important things on their own channel, so I have a separate EQ, fader, and pan for each most important thing in my mix. And then I start to group other things out as needed on secondary faders, just like I would in the box. And as it leaves, so the SSL has 2 mix buses. Usually I only use one, so I'll just use one. The analog mix bus of the SSL leaves the SSL and goes back into Pro Tools, and it is the only thing that feeds the mix bus. So nothing that's headed towards the SSL feeds the mix bus. It goes into the SSL, out of the SSL, back into Pro Tools, then it hits the mix bus. Then I can tailor the analog mix bus in the box with digital plugins and finish it. Because I'm not a world-class mastering engineer. I wouldn't know how to finish a song at a comparable level with analog gear that I can do with plugins. So. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Jake. Good morning in Australia. Keandre Jones asks, "Hey Ken, I'm working a 9 to 5 and trying to put in at least 1 hour of time a day. It's a little tough. What transpired in your life to where you could do music full time?" Keandre, here's probably the reality of it is I was broke and had saved up for a long time when I moved to New York City. I'd saved for about a year. I got to New York City. I had a job that paid me practically nothing. I had first and last month's rent, and I made that shit work. And, I planned for it. I saved up for it. And we made the move. It could have easily gone either way, and we just persevered through it. So the tough time, the tough part for you is once you already have a good paying job, it's really damn hard to go back to making no money for a while, which is almost certainly what the music industry dictates. It's not like other normal jobs where like you go to college, you get your degree, somebody hires you to produce their record because you have a degree. That is not the way it works. A production degree is not going to get you production gigs. Okay. But, just, I don't know if I'm giving you positive advice. I'm sorry. I don't know, make it count. I'd say, I know we had Marcus Manderson on the show last week, and he, puts the kids to bed late and stays up until 3 a.m. Like, you just got to do what you got to do. And, you know, make sure you still love it when you're doing it. Don't just grind just to be putting in the hours. Okay. Yuki asks, hey, Ken, I'm considering buying a PC. Oh, you're going to buy a Mac. I'm considering buying a Mac, either a MacBook Pro or an iMac. What is your recommendation? And can you share your Hackintosh specs? So, I'm trying to move my portable rig all over to my MacBook Pro laptop. I have the newer 16, but not everything is compatible with Catalina yet, which is Catalina is the operating system. So you got to be really careful. Like, I haven't moved my travel rig to the MacBook Pro yet because of Catalina. Eventually I'll get there. Hey, oh yeah. Sorry. So for those just checking in, my name's Ken Lewis. This is Mixing Night. You found it. Thanks for tuning in. I'm just doing a little organizing on screen for a moment. So I would take the MacBook Pro over the iMac because they're both going to run on Catalina, but the MacBook Pro is going to be a lot more portable, and it's still got a great screen on it, so you can still work. And you can plug in another screen and just use it in shell mode if you want. The other part of your question was, my Hackintosh specs. I think I got 32 gig of RAM. It's a 3.6 gig processor. I don't really know any of this shit at all. Like, I pay people to get this stuff right, and so that I don't have to worry about it. You know, there's something to be said for hiring the pros to do pro shit. So, you know, there's a reason we all got here. Okay, I hope that helped. The Hackintosh has been hit and miss. Like, performance off the fucking chain, ridiculous price for performance, but if it goes down, it might not be the easiest thing to fix as a regular Mac. So you got to weigh how much you're going to save on building a Hackintosh, which is very significant, how much more performance you can get out of it, and then, you know, how much you want to be able to maintain it. Keith asks, how much do you charge to mix and master? Keith, I try not to put my rates out publicly, but anybody who is serious about inquiring about mixing, my mixing site is iproducemusic.com. I know that's a stupid name for a mixing site, but, you know, it's a dual purpose. So iproducemusic.com is my mixing site. Anybody who wants to know there. But seriously, like, don't inundate me just to hear. When I'm not doing this broadcast, I actually am working 7 days a week, and but I mix a lot for independent artists. I actually really love doing it. You know, it's kind of just like this show. I'm doing the show because I'm having a blast doing it, and same with mixing indie artists. It keeps me sharp so that when those major calls come, it's just like just another day. All right, Mike Heebs asks, Ken, what's your favorite album to sit back and press play and still enjoy to this day? Lately, Sam Fender is my favorite. I love the Sam Fender album. Billie Eilish, I'm a huge Billie Eilish fan. I would put her like at Prince level for as far as musical talent. I really would. Maybe the combination of her and Phineas together might make that, but whatever they're cooking up over there is pretty special. Some of my favorite older albums, Toad the Wet Sprocket, the Fear album was like a religious experience in my life. Pearl Jam 10, Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill, Live, Throwing Copper, Train, Drops of Jupiter. Speaking of Train, Skrizzly Adams knows the lead singer of Train, Pat Monahan. And so they keep in touch, and Skriz sends some stuff. So he sent Pat Too Close to Fire, and Pat hit him right back after he listened, and he was like, amazing, that's your best one yet. So, and we've got some bangers with Skrizzly, so we're hopeful with this one. Check it out on Friday. Okay, Matt Thrasher asks, hey Ken, you said you work in 44.1 24-bit, and you gave some of the best reasons why. When you get in a project with another sample rate, do you convert them or just suck it up and use whatever sample rate you're given? I stay in whatever sample and bit rate I'm given. My system can pretty much handle anything. But I will tell you that for those who don't know, the reasons that you would choose 44.1 or 48K over 88.2 or 96 is it takes up twice as much hard drive space, and it also taxes your drives twice as much. So if you have spinning drives and you're running a lot of tracks, and you're running at 96K, those drives might start choking after a while. Or if your throughput isn't, bandwidth isn't enough, so all sorts of things can get you in trouble. The other reason to go a lower sample rate 44.1 instead of 88.2 or 96K is when you go to the higher sample rates, the 96K, it cuts your DSP in half. So if I could run 100 plugins, now I can only run 50. It's not exactly that, but you get the math. I think that answers everything for you. I'm going to take some questions off the chat roll. See who's out there tonight. I got a bunch of killers on the chat roll tonight. I see all you guys. All right. Sorry, I'm going to slurp in everybody's ear. Oh, God, I love coffee. Iced coffee. If you haven't tried iced coffee, my God, start making your own cold brew iced coffee. We've been doing it for a couple of years, and it's like the best shit I've ever had in my life. I love it. Okay, from the chat roll, last minute entry J asks, there seems to be a debate between ears versus numbers, meaning hearing when a mix is good or using parameters or values of where a mix should be. He goes on to say, I often use a spectrum analyzer to try and see if my mix is balanced, but I like the way it sounds when it's more skewed. How can a beginner or intermediate engineer split the difference between numbers and taste? All right. Fuck the numbers. Fuck the numbers. I've never used a spectrum analyzer. I don't ever see myself doing that. So that would be the real pro mentality. And I think Howie Weinberg said the exact same thing when he gave us an answer on, was it 2 weeks ago? The numbers are important to an extent. Like you have certain RMS targets on your mix bus and things like that, but anybody out there who is mixing with your eyes and not your ears, you're doing it wrong. There is not a time where I'm mixing with my eyeballs. If I'm looking at the screen, my ears are tracking every single thing that is moving on that screen, and I'm paying attention. So, yeah, throw away the spectrum analyzer, go with your gut, and see if your results get better. And try sprint mixing. Sprint mixing, I think, is the single best thing I have on my whole site. I wanted to talk about who listening to the live stream right now knows what Discord is. I didn't. But a bunch of people who are on the broadcast suggested that I set up a Discord community. So that's what we did. We set up a discord.com mixing night community. I'm not really sure exactly how you get onto there. So, but if you go to discord.com and look for Mixing Night, I think Dominic on the chat roll will probably tell you how to do it. Anyway, okay. So I think I'm probably going to give Skrizzly Adams a call in a minute. Again, so Skrizzly's going to perform a stripped down version of Too Close to Fire. And we're dropping the full version of the single on Friday. I'm hoping that he lets me play a snippet of it tonight just to whet your appetite for it, because, God, it's a banger. Okay, so Skrizzly, we've been producing him for 7-8 years now. He signed to Atlantic Records originally, put out a few singles, did an album, didn't really take off. It kind of got shelved and ignored by the label. Shit happens. Went back independent and has been grinding independent, and we've been so happy with the trajectory of the way things are going. It's building great. His fan base is worldwide. I mean, you just had a fucking gold single in Switzerland, so you just never know. All right, I'm gonna see. He's supposed to send me a link for. Oh, he hasn't sent it yet. All right, I'm gonna give him a call and see if I can raise him on the broadcast and see if we can get this thing cooking. All right. There. Ooh. There. Danger Dan, you out there?
Can, 1 sec.
No worries. Do you need some time? I can call you back in a bit. Oh, there.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
There's the man himself.
How do I get the video? Yeah, I'm here.
So, dude, congratulations on your gold single in Switzerland. That's fucking awesome.
You too. Yeah, another one for. Was it your number 100 or no?
Well, I don't count the international ones.
Okay.
So, if I counted the international, I'd be at like 1,000 right now. But let's fucking get a US one on Too Close to Fire. So Skrizzly's gonna perform Too Close to Fire. Is the U87 on?
U87's on. I sent you the link. Did you receive it?
Ah, that's why I don't hear you yet. Okay, let me find this link in my email. There it is.
Is the angle on the camera good?
I'll tell you in a second. There it is.
What's going on, everyone? In the broadcast.
There he is. So we have to get through a little technical shit, but we got you now. There you go. All right.
So the phone is muted. Andrew, give me a chord or something.
Skrizzly Adams, Too Close to Fire.
Ken, we good to do a live performance? Cool. Going live. New single tomorrow at midnight. Too Close to Fire. Good, Ken.
1, 2, 3, and.
Maybe the way that you move me just shakes me alive. I say, maybe the heat got too strong, but you can't get enough because all that you want is best left alone. It's hard to fly by with some wings that got holes, but everything's safe, just feels so old. But you're not the one to just do what you're told, so you too close to fire. You're too close to fire. You're too close to fire. Well, you cut me loose when you told me, yeah, to welcome the crash and burn. Cause every excuse keeps me reaching, but you make me wanna learn that all that you want is best left alone. But who says the taste of rebellion's so wrong? Cause everything's safe, just feels so old. But you're not the one to just do what you're told, so you you're too close to fire. Too close to fire. Thanks so much.
Dope.
You there?
I got you.
Nice. What's going on, people? Do you see me? Hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Cool.
Dope, dude. Can I play them a little bit of the studio version? Like 20 seconds of it?
What do you want to do? The second verse? First
I want to
verse?
do coming out of the chorus, the drop chorus out of the
do the
out
first
of the
chorus
bridge.
and the second chorus. Maybe.
First chorus and the second? Okay.
Yeah, play the second verse. Maybe
All right. I don't
the
know.
whole thing. Maybe it's time. Why not?
I'm going to play you just through the end of the first chorus from the beginning of the song.
Cool. Yeah, sure. Maybe the way that you move me just shakes me alive. I say, maybe the heat got too strong, but you can't get enough because all that you want is best left alone. But it's hard to fly by with some wings that got holes, but everything's safe, just feels so old. But you're not the one to just do what you're told, so you you're too close to fire.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, we're pretty pumped.
Yeah. So I think I had given you a couple questions. Did you happen to print those out or anything?
I did not print them. I remembered them. If you have them in front of you, that'd be easier. Or do you not?
I don't, but if you can just generally remember what the question is.
Okay, so the first one I remember was this one I thought was interesting. Someone said if they have 5 or 6 hit records, what do you do if you have 5 or 6 hit records? First of all, pat yourself on the back because you have 5 to 6 hit records. That's incredible. Most people will never have 5 to 6 hit records. But if you truly have 5 to 6 hit records, assuming, I think you were, well, first off, maybe you're talking you only have 5 to 6 hit songs. Make sure they're records. So you're working with a established producer and a mixer, and that they're finished products that are going to compete commercially on a streaming platform. I think the person was asking whether,
like, what do you do then?
A lawyer, yeah. I mean, that's like an interesting question. I mean, if you're really that confident in the music and you believe they're hits and they're like chart worthy and you want to see them go the distance, then that means like you need money behind it. So that traditionally means you want to shop it to a record label. So assuming you don't have any contacts with the record labels, you either A, need a lawyer who's going to shop the demo, or a manager who's going to shop the demo. But we live in 2020, and like people are doing amazing things completely independently. So, you know, if you get $500,000 from a label, they end up owning 85% of everything.
I mean,
you can get $500,000 from somebody else.
One of the craziest things to me nowadays is you can put up a video on TikTok and get signed in a month or a day or a week. Just,
sure.
You know, it's usually not going to be the path to success. But the fact that nowadays you have a vehicle to put your creativity out there on your own without a label is, I think the labels are kind of, you know, circling the waters, just looking to cherry pick whatever artists are rising. So, you know, you've got 88 million Spotify streams. That came with a lot of playlisting and a lot of collaboration, right?
Yes, definitely.
So,
I mean, a lot of it for me was collaboration with Chris Webby, who I work with. Playlist for me, it really wasn't like I know like your work, like the Des stuff is very heavily playlisted. Mine really only is 7% playlisted editorial wise.
Jesus,
the rest,
so we got to 88 million streams with you and Webby and almost no playlisting. That's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I mean it's really just I mean for us, between the two of us, it really is just like the same. Like I said, like the monthly listeners for me isn't huge. It's like 500,000, but it's the same people going back and binge listening, and you know, it's just like I think the thing I got lucky with is I have like enough songs to have a catalog, so you can like binge listen to it on a drive, or if you're a super fan of mine, you just listen to it. And it's the same thing with Chris Webby. I mean, he has like 300 songs, and I think his fans don't listen to other artists; they just listen to him over and over and over again.
Yeah, he's become quite an amazing independent business.
Yeah, it's the Webby industry, we call it.
Yeah,
it's its own thing.
It's incredible. Like these guys, if you're an independent artist and you're trying to find your way in the world and you want people to follow that have paved the way for you and shown you how it's done, follow Skrizzly Adams, follow Chris Webby. Follow Des Rocs.
Really is like one of the first. The big one was Russ, when we all got inspired by Russ. He was the one who he just kind of like you put out a single and then put out another single and then put out another single, and then suddenly you have 10 singles that are gold records.
Right, and only one of those really has to catch, and then it starts fueling everything else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, then it almost creates like one catch is really big, and then retroactively something else starts going, and everything just kind of just starts going, you know?
So we got another question off the chat roll from Lon Freeze. Asks, why indie over major? What are the advantages?
I mean,
or are
for
there?
me personally, I think we can say, because we were major at one point, is number one, the ability to just move faster. For me, it's all about efficiency and speed. I mean, if there's one thing obviously making the music I want to make and doing the best I can musically, but when it comes to business-wise, it's like being able to just move fast. And I mean, I do all of the paperwork myself. I mean, I have a team around me, but
this is it. That's interesting you bring this up, because here's something people don't know. If you're on a major label, and this happened to us, if you're on a major label and you want to put a single out, you can't put a single out. Like, say the label is just utterly ignoring you and you just want to get some shit going on your own. You can't just put a single out on your own and as if you were an independent artist. You've got to put it on the schedule, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to put it on the schedule, and sometimes the label doesn't even want to schedule a single for you. So you sign that major label artist deal, and all of a sudden you no longer have the ability to build a fan base until they want to pull the trigger for you. You're basically in limbo. You can't release stuff. You can't really build things because you're locked into the major label system.
And our purgatory, yeah. And it's thing is, like, they're all looking at a calendar. Like I said, like, to get on the calendar can take 3 to 4 months. Yeah. And you have one person representing you who probably doesn't even really believe in you that much at that point. And if you have that one shot at bat and it flops, it's a reflection on them. So it's like, that's number one. And then number two is just with what's happened with streaming, like with Webby, and what's happened with me is, like, if I sign to a major label, I get, let's say, $500,000 to fund everything. Essentially, I have to, once I break even on $500,000, I will get like a 13 cents on every dollar royalty.
Well, not only that, but you've got to pay that $500,000 back out of that 13 cents on the dollar. It's not, so if you say you sell a $10 album, the label takes however much. You get a tiny little fraction, but you don't get that fraction. It's recoupable. It goes back towards your recoupment, and you pay back your recoupment like 15 cents at a time per dollar. It's crazy. So if you owe $100,000, you pay that back literally 15 cents on the dollar at a time, while the record company is making bank on the rest of your sales.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to compare this to a bank loan, it's literally the worst bank loan of all time.
Yeah.
So totally. Like, I really think, like, the best thing you can do is if you can borrow $100,000 at a well, that's what distributors are doing right now. Like, I work with STEM, and they're giving, like, big financial. I'm not taking any. I'm in a good place financially, but they're offering artists advances at, like, a bank rate. You know, nothing right. Crazy.
That would make sense.
The best thing to do is just. The best thing is you can get in a situation where you just pay the money back and you don't owe anyone anything is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, that's the advantage that I see in the major label system, other than the fact that they have worldwide distribution and they can get you on the radio in ways that it's much harder to without them.
You can't hire. Look, I'm popular in. I think my markets are U.S., Canada, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, Netherlands, Australia, and New Zealand. If I really like. Let's say Too Close to Fire blows up. Right now, we're just chasing it in the United States with radio and promo. Like, the administrative cost of me overseeing paying a team in every single one of those markets itself, I just couldn't afford. It's impossible. Right. So that's where major label comes in.
And you wouldn't even know who to hire and how to pay them, or who to trust, if they're trustworthy. Exactly. So the labels serve a purpose. You know, the other good thing that the labels do is the money that you spend is recoupable, but it's not like you have to pull it out of your own pocket to pay it back. You only pay back recoupable expenses out of the money that the label earns from your music. So if they give you $100,000 advance and they never put you out and they shelf you, you don't really owe that $100,000 back. But if they put you out and they sell a whole bunch, they're going to take that $100,000 back first before they start paying you any money. That's how it works.
I have a friend who's on a major label right now. She's a lot younger, and I this is an expression I live by, and it's a horrible thing to say, but it's the truth. If you sign to a major label and it doesn't work out, you are going to hate them for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. If you sign to a major label and it does work out, you're gonna hate them for the rest of your life. Like either way it works, it just you're not gonna like them. It's a horrible thing to say. Like if you sell 10 million records, you are going to just hate their guts. If you get shelved for a year and a half, you're going to hate their guts. Like there's very few situations where you like these people.
And I mean, the horror stories that we hear talking to artists when we're songwriting with them or whoever, you know, like we were writing with this one artist on a major, and they had just gotten a single out, and they were so excited that the label had put anything out on them, because they were like, we're like, you know, all of our friends who are assigned to the same label as us, nobody's getting put out. Everybody's on the shelf. So that's, you know, that's unfortunately, I think labels still scoop up a little bit too much talent and don't intend to work at all and hope that something rises. And I think that's probably just always the way it's going to be. Yeah.
A friend of mine, Bryce, I think he's a little more conspiracy theorist than I am, but he's a really big believer in artists signing competition for the sake of shelving them a lot more frequently than you would think. So,
I mean, it's happened to us.
It's happened to a lot of people. He thinks it happens, like he thinks half of the artists are purposely shelved. Like he gives me examples all the time.
I mean, like, me and Brent had an artist that we developed that one of the 3 major label systems, the chairman of that major label system put a call out to every president of the main major labels under that system that they couldn't sign this artist, that only he could sign it if he wanted it, but until he wanted it, nobody else could touch it. It's fucking the shit that goes on is like, but it's, you know, but I mean, I think it's good for people to know, like, major label land isn't something after you've been through it that you're like, yes, you need to be on a major. Like, he's been there. Skrizzly Adams has been there, and you know, and
I would love to someday go back on like amazing terms whenever I'm ready to sell globally on like a huge level.
Right. But I mean, like, if Too Close to Fire was a smash hit, really that's the thing. If we had a smash hit, like if we could take Dance with Darkness and get a gold record in America, or get some real heat in America, exactly, the deals that would be getting thrown at you could craft your own deal at that point. But until, that's the thing in major label land, until everybody wants you don't really have any power at all. If everybody's bidding on you, then you can pretty much get the kind of a deal that you want. But most people still go for the money instead of the deal terms, and I usually go for the deal terms.
That's the thing that blows my mind. People are always like, I'm here to get the bag. Or like, what if they throw you a bag? And like, they might throw you $1 million, but the deal terms are terrible. What is $1 million over the course of 30 years?
Exactly.
Like, what is the point of selling $1 million for your career? It's awful.
Right.
Like,
so what's Skrizzly's
position? He grosses well over $1 million a year just selling independent singles. It's like much better situation.
It's crazy. And that's the thing people don't realize. Like that advance, they'll take other things from you to give you a bigger advance. They'll give you less royalty or less publishing or less whatever. So you get the advance, and the advance is only a loan. You got to pay it back. You don't actually keep any of that money long term unless you don't recoup. So interesting conversations with the expert Skrizzly Adams, who's been through it. I'm going to get back to the rest of my show. But everybody should. Shout out your socials so everybody knows how and where to follow you.
If you hit me up, I will respond. I promise. Super active on Instagram. It's at Skrizzly Adams, Skrizzly Adams. Same thing. Facebook /Skrizzly Adams. Twitter /Skrizzly Adams. And again, new single Thursday at midnight. Check it out on Spotify and Apple Music and Deezer and Amazon and YouTube, and hopefully on a radio station near you. So check it out.
Thank you, bro. I will. I'm sure I will see you very soon.
Cool. I'll catch you tomorrow, probably. Right. Man, well, see ya.
Thanks, man. Bye bye. Skrizzly Adams, the one and only. So, I think that's pretty amazing that people really like to say that Spotify doesn't pay anything out, and streaming doesn't pay shit, and blah, blah, blah. All of that is true. All of that is 100% completely true. And still, services like Spotify have opened up doors to allow independent artists like Skrizzly Adams and Des Rocs and the other people that we're working with to find a way forward and to build a real career and make real money. And and build a real fan base worldwide without going out and having to tour the world. So, you know, Spotify pays shit, but keep this in mind about Spotify. The hope with Spotify is when it scales up. Right now, they've got maybe 100 million users. When it's 300 million, 400 million users, I hope everybody's going to get a lot more spins. That's going to equate to a lot more money. And there's going to be more people finding more opportunities and that kind of stuff. Okay. I think I'm going to move to... I'm going to do a whole section here on mono, stereo, and panning. I got a bunch of questions this week. I get a bunch of questions on this every week, but it's kind of a hard thing to show. So let me put away tipping point and see about... let's see. Let's get that. Where's... Come on now. Boom. Okay. Are... Here, Livey asks, are mono vocal takes best panned via busing, hard left and right, or is duplicating original takes the way to go? Okay, don't duplicate takes. If you're doing this, if you're just taking this, if you're just taking this one file and copying it and then panning the copy against itself, that's mono. That is not the way you get stereo. That is just don't do that. Forget you knew how to do that. Okay, let me go over panning background vocals. I get asked constantly, and Liar just asked me, where's the other? Oh, here's Douglas Rogers also asks, hey Ken, in mixing background vocals, what is the best way to get them to mesh in the mix? If I record 4 takes, do I pan them hard left and right, stagger the pans? What do I do? Okay, well, Douglas and Livey, I'm going to show you. So I pulled up this, okay, so let me back up. Who knows that I have a school? I have a school, audioschoolonline.com. And I post mixing tutorials and production tutorials and recording tutorials and all sorts of stuff. And Audio School Online tends to be like the higher level fill in the gaps that the schools don't teach you and the run-of-the-mill basic tutorials and shit don't teach you. And, you know, the good thing is, you know, if I'm teaching it to you, I'm teaching you something that I actually do myself. And people tend to like my work, so hopefully that means that the shit I'm teaching you is got some validity to it. And let's continue on that path. So about my school, this session that I have right here is from the tutorial Mixing Background Vocals, which is a 2.5-hour tutorial. So if you learn anything from this little 5-minute YouTube thing that I'm going to show you from this tutorial, imagine what 2.5 hours is going to show you. It's like the Bible roadmap for mixing backgrounds. And I have another complimentary tutorial on the site called Mixing Lead Vocals and choosing lead vocal effects, all sorts of stuff. So if you're struggling with vocals and you want some really more in-depth stuff, check it out there. Okay. Okay. So I have... Okay, so what I have here it's a 4-part stacked harmony. In this case, each different color is a different note. So I have 2 notes of each part. And I have all 4 of those panned hard left and right. Nothing anywhere all the way out. And what I find is, so there's a few different things. This kind of a part, listen to this part again and I'll break it down for you.
Do you like it, boy? Tell me if you like it, boy.
So this is a little bit looser. I don't feel like I need like mega layers of backgrounds. So 2 on each note works totally fine for me. If typically I probably would do 4 per note, and I would probably pan 2 hard left and 2 hard right. Sometimes I cinch them up the middle a little bit. But in most cases, I'm panning background vocals hard left and right against each other. But there are some cases, like right here, where you have only 3 backgrounds cut. And so what the heck do you do when you've got only 3? Okay. Oh, interesting. So here I have a group of 3 high ahs and 3 low ahs. I'll play the low ahs. So you can see on this, I took 2 of each of the 3 and panned those hard left and right, but I took that third one of each group and I panned the lower one slightly left and the higher one slightly right, so that everything is off of the lead vocal and I have this kind of nice stereo spread. You don't really hear it pulling to one direction or the other in the headphones. I checked, so I am conscious of that to make sure that it's not doing that. It would be perfectly acceptable to also pan that middle one up in the center and just let it sit underneath the lead vocal. But I like to try and get it away from the lead vocal sometimes when I can. And then, let's see. I think these are 4 copies again. The only other time where I might do something different than 4, sometimes I'll do 8 if it's a really, really lush song and I have a singer who's really, really good at doubling themselves. But usually I'll do 4 or 5. And if I do 5, I'll put 1 in the center and either fan the others out, or 4 hard left and right and 1 in the center. And I use that center one. Sometimes you don't have a lead vocal in your blend. And sometimes, you need that center anchor weight. And if everything is panned hard left and right, you don't have it. So sometimes I'll cut 5 and treat 1 like a support lead or something like that. So, okay, hopefully that makes a whole lot of sense. Let's see if anybody on the chat has any questions as I'm kind of doing this. If you don't understand something, or if you have a follow-up question to something I'm showing, just hit me on the chat, and hopefully Dominic will feed it up for me. Speaking of Dominic, Dominic is the manning the chat roll tonight, and Lori is running the ATEM switcher, doing the video. But the Skrizzly Adams Too Close to Fire, Dominic played the drums on that. So here's a perfect example of, if you've seen previous broadcasts, I'm always harping about make yourself valuable, make yourself valuable. Well, he came over to work on stuff that had nothing to do with music, or at least nothing to do with that music. And he also happens to be an incredible drummer, available for sessions if you need him, Dominic Ravinius. And I needed drums. I gave him the part. I didn't really expect much because I had never worked with him as a session player and I'd never really heard him play, but I gave him a vision and he was like, oh, okay. And he fed me back finished ideas and I was like, shit, okay, this is great. And now the second song that we did with Skriz after Too Close to Fire is this song called 28, which is a banger, and Dominic played drums on 28 as well. So, I think that's kind of interesting. It kind of goes towards like how I got into working with Kanye. I started working with Kanye because he had me recreating samples for him. But that was just the door opener. Once the door was open, then I was like, oh, well, I mixed for him, I produced for him, I arranged for him, I'm a co-writer on some stuff. So, whatever gets you through that door of opportunity might be the thing that opens it wide enough to get it to do what you really want from it. Let's take some more chat. Let's see. Paul Hinton asks, Have you been collaborating with the same co-producer for years? What are some advantages of that, and what makes long-term partnerships like that work or not work? Yeah, me and Brent Colatalo have been production partners for over a decade. We've produced for Future, Eminem, Ingrid Michaelson, Avenged Sevenfold, oh man, Kanye, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, One Republic, Ella Henderson. What else? Who else? Yeah, it's a long list. It's been really great. And, you know, it's great having a partner because that you trust anyway. That's the key. I trust his opinion. I trust his musical sensibilities. And I trust the ability to bounce ideas back and forth off of him. And I trust his ability to be my safety net and my ability to be his safety net as we create. And what I find is, you know, there's some push and pull. I don't always see things the way he sees things, but, you know, we're all friends. You try and find some common ground. But I definitely find that having a production partner makes the final product, the final music, significantly better, in my opinion, for me. All right, from the chat, Steve Polis asks, about bit and sample rate, isn't it true that all streaming services other than Tidal convert to 16-bit anyways? I don't know. I would think they're not converting. They don't convert. Whoever wants to be played on that platform gives them the file format that they need, I would assume. I don't really know. But yeah, Tidal has the highest quality sound, but I don't know. Streaming doesn't bother me at all. To me, I'm not really listening. It's kind of really weird. You would think I might like the highest fidelity service, but really I listen to music for notes and melodies and rhythms and enjoyment, and not for, you know, clarity of the mix. I do that when I'm working. Okay, what's next on the... Oh, I'm going to show the other thing about panning. So that was vocal panning. Now I'm going to go to instrument panning and things like that. All right, while I'm pulling that up, I'll do a couple more on the chat roll. Mixed by Rican asks, should a mix engineer receive royalties for mixing? Not unless you're a big fucking mixer. I just don't... I don't... You know, I used to get a half a point sometimes. I never made a fucking dime off that shit. I think it's a sucker's bet. Take the upfront money. Get as much upfront money as you can. It's probably, you know, once in a blue million years, somebody might lose on not taking the points. But I'll take the money over the points on mixing any day of the week. Because the way record companies calculate royalties, you know, you could be recouping for a long time before you see any money on that. That's the thing. A point isn't a point. A point is only worth anything after that song recoups. If the song doesn't recoup, that point is completely worthless. A point meaning a royalty point. Okay, back to the show. Okay, Jacob asks, hey Ken, where should I place my loops and instruments such as keys and bells? Tips on panning or layering so that they don't clash with the main vocals. And there's a very similar question from Alex. Alex asks, hey Ken, if you're working with a lot of similar timbre samples like strings, how do you handle EQing or panning to avoid the mix getting muddy? Okay. So I get asked a ton of this. I'm just going to kind of go through this stuff briefly because there's probably a bunch of people out there who really need to brush up on this, and a lot of you out there are going to be bored silly for the next few minutes, so my apologies. Again, this PDF is from the Audio School Online tutorial, mono, stereo, and panning. Mono, stereo, and panning explained by me. So hopefully I did a very good job of it. Okay, what is mono? Single channel in the middle or wherever you pan that single channel. Stereo, 2 channels, left and right. You can pan them wherever you want, but typically stereo is wide, left and right. Headphones. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm expecting that you guys can like watch the rebroadcast of this and pause it and look at these things. So I'm just going to kind of skip through some of these pages so you can kind of see them. What sounds are off in mono, what sounds are off in stereo. Oh yeah, okay. Lori's showing you that on the screen. So that gives you an idea. Again, these are all suggestions. They're not steadfast rules. They're just typically the way we happen to see it most of the time. What is panning? So if you don't know what panning is, when you hear something move off of the center, or if you hear something only in your left ear or only in your right ear, that's called panned. So if you take a sound in the middle and you pan it, move it out to the left, you have panned that to the left. That's what that means. Okay. More info. Ken's basic panning guidelines. All right, pause and read that. So here we go. What goes into the center? Again, these are only guidelines. You could have a stereo kick track that pulls to the left. Anything is possible, but typically kick, snare, hi-hat, bass line, 808, lead vocals, guitar solos, things like that typically go in the center. Okay. What often gets panned? What is typical stereo? I'll let you guys read that for a moment. I'm going to let you read that, and I'm going to take something else off the chat roll, and then I'm going to come back to this. Thomas Bontanen asks, Ken, can you go through the process of creating 808s with kicks on Logic? Shit, no, I can't, Thomas. I'm sorry. That's a big ask right now. I gotta actually prepare that shit. Let's see. James Blomquist asks, hey, Ken, have you used and do you recommend SonarWorks or Arc for room correction? I don't use either of them. I love the way my room sounds. I moved everything around a whole lot until I got it to sound this way. I'm definitely lucky. I know people who absolutely swear by SonarWorks and thinks that it has greatly improved their mixes. Same with Arc. Yeah, I mean, if those things can help you dial in your sound, then by all means, check them out and try them out. And I've gotten multiple good recommendations from people, so I haven't used it, but I feel fairly confident in recommending it. Let's see. Okay, so that's the last of this PDF. Let me see what I have answered in that. So the other thing Alex asks, if you're working with a lot of similar timbre loops like strings and pianos, how do you handle EQing or panning to avoid the mix getting muddy? So sometimes I'll use MS EQ, middle side EQ, and I'll carve out a little bit of the enunciation frequencies out of, say, the piano or the guitar or something that sits in the middle, cymbal tracks, and I'll leave a little bit of more room for the lead vocal, and I'll maybe add, sometimes I'll add that to the sides. But to me, it's a lot of reverse EQing. So if I feel like my enunciation frequencies are really cutting at 3 to 4K, I'm probably going to pull a little bit of that out of the middle of the strings to make room for the lead vocal. That kind of stuff can really help a lot. Same with, I think, Arturo asks, how do I position instruments in the mix by LCR? So Arturo, if you were just paying attention, I just showed you that. Dustin asks, hey Ken, at what point do you mix in mono after you've set your panning? At what point do you mix in mono? After you've set your panning, during, or before? I don't mix in mono. I never mix in mono. I check my mix in mono occasionally just to make sure that something crazy isn't happening or something is going to really cancel out or something. But I don't really spend too much time making sure I have a mono compatible mix. Having said that, it's probably because my ears are really tuned to phase issues. And if I'm having phase issues, phase issues can hurt your mono compatibility, then I will probably hear them without even checking the mono. And then Stephen Paulus asks, I just answered your question, but you have a good one here that you're all sorts of disheveled here. Stephen Paulus asks, I'm familiar with the differences between mono and stereo. However, I'm confused when it comes to production. For a hypothetical, can an entire beat be produced with all stereo tracks? Yes. Can it then be mixed in mono later on? It could, but you wouldn't want to. You would want to keep it in stereo. It would make no sense to mix it down into mono. Stephen continues, or should the beats be produced with mono instruments from the get-go and then converted to stereo later on? No. Okay, and then and then with that said, how should you use plugins such as chorus, pan, delay that require stereo to be utilized through mixing? So I'm not going to get into all that. It would be a huge thing to have to show, but generally speaking, you're overthinking it. If when you pull up a soft synth, if the sound is mono, keep it mono. If the sound is stereo, keep it stereo. If there's a really good reason to undo it or make a mono sound stereo or vice versa, that's just a production decision, but it should be made not because you want it to be mono or stereo. That decision should be made because by doing that, it helps your song in some certain way that makes the most sense. Hopefully that makes the most sense. Okay. What is going to be next? Oh, I think I can probably... Okay, let me see if I can... This next question is from Herman. Herman asks, hey, Ken, can you show... one second. Sorry, Herman, I'll get to you in a second. Dominic is asking me on the chat roll. That PDF for the panning notes, it comes with it is included in the mono, stereo, and panning tutorial when you buy it. It's downloadable. But you can watch the rebroadcast and just, copy it off the screen if you want. I mean, I'd prefer you spend a little bit of money, but, free is free. So, okay, so Herman asks, hey, Ken, can you show or explain your process and workflow on how you manage the gain staging process? Okay, pay attention, Herman. This is important. When I start a mix, right here is the volume for my speakers on the SSL. So I turn this up or down, the volume gets louder or softer. When I begin a mix, with all faders all the way down. I make sure there's no automation firing, because automation will take your fader that's all the way down, and in the middle of your mix, it'll snap it up to super loud and blow your speakers. So you need to make sure your automation's off, or that you control those tracks somehow. And then, sorry. And then this starts at 11. The SSL actually does... I don't think you can probably see it from the overhead camera, but the SSL volume actually goes to 11. I love it. Thank you, SSL. So I start with my volume all the way up, and what that allows me to do is, as I'm starting to push up my faders, my drum tracks, my vocals, my bass, my guitars, my whatever, my 808s, because I had the volume so loud, I can start my volumes there at like minus 30, minus 20 on the faders, instead of starting my mix with the faders up at zeros and minus 5s. And this gives you no headroom at all. You're out of headroom when you start. But if you start with your volume, your listening volume all the way up, and when your listening volume is all the way up, pushing something up to minus 30 is the listening equivalent to, say, for instance, pushing it up to 0 and turning the listening volume down to about 7 or 8. So what this does is preserves your headroom on your mix bus so that you can manipulate it later. Start your mix on 11. Make sure you don't have any automation running, nothing jumping out that's going to blow your speakers. And start your mix for the first 15, 20 minutes. Sprint through the first 15 or 20 minutes, just like I do. And get a bunch of stuff into the mix as fast as you can, and then pull back and turn the volume down, to a reasonable listening level, and just start doing more listening and fine-tuning and crafting. And then every now and then listen at super high volume again and make sure it's all good. And it should, you know, be a back and forth. And actually, on that note, this answers that question. Scott asks, "Hey Ken, I tend to mix my snare too loud. Can you? I don't know if that's a thing. I tend to mix my snare too loud. What is your approach for getting a snare to sit in a mix while still retaining the groove?" So the first thing that I'll say about that is sitting in the mix, you don't necessarily want to put your snare where it feels the safest, where it feels the most balanced, because where it feels the most balanced may or may not be where it feels the best. So you're really looking to put that snare where it feels just the best to your instincts. You just got to use your instincts, and you got to, usually I close my eyes and I'll grab the fader and I'll move the, and I'll move the fader and I'll balance it until I lock in. You can do the same thing with a mouse. It's just clunkier. Until I lock it into where I think it feels the best. And then I'll listen on 2 or 3 different sets of speakers. I'll listen loud, I'll listen soft, I'll listen super, super soft, and I want to make sure that I can hear that part at every volume. It's going to be perceptually slightly different at every volume, but as long as I'm hearing it and it doesn't sound too loud or too soft. Sorry, I'm going to slurp. Hey, if you're new joining us, you found Ken Lewis and Mixing Night. Welcome to the show. Please like and subscribe the channel. Set your notifications for the next show. I've been dropping a video every Sunday on how-tos, the 5 tips to finish your mix, how to handle harsh vocal frequencies. We put a new one out this Sunday. What did we put out this Sunday? I forget which one that was. But if you go to the Mixing Night YouTube channel, we're dropping one new video every Sunday. We're doing the show every 2 weeks now, and I really appreciate your support. So thank you for liking, subscribing. Check out the for those just tuning in, we also have a Discord channel, discord.com. We have the Mixing Night channel at Discord. So I know a lot of gamers use Discord, so we're kind of starting to move this. I figure the sprint mixing is kind of like playing video games, so it totally makes sense that we would actually show up on Discord. So, all right, I think I answered your gain staging. What's next? Oh, okay. DJ Miggs from Toronto asks, "Hey Ken, I'm new to recording vocals, and I love vocals that are heavily processed and distorted." Man, you're preaching to the choir, dude. Think Beastie Boys, Future, Flume, etc. I want to know what tools and VSTs might help me right out of the box achieve some brilliant pro-quality processing without knowing how to manually manipulate vocals. Basically, I'm looking for a quick fix to be better at something I'm weak at. See if I can help you, DJ Miggs. Okay. Oh shit, I gotta fire vocal distortion. Boom. Okay, I'm gonna fire up Lazarus Sacred Circles. If you've seen previous broadcasts, I use that one a bunch. I love the song. This is so the group is Lazarus. You can check them out on YouTube. LAHZARUS. Lazarus. Yes. Okay. So one of the big keys that I have found in getting your lead vocal distortion to sound right is to use a limiter before the distortion. So let me play you a bit of Sacred Circles. Oh, God damn. That was fucking loud. You know that the mix bus and gain staging that I told you about and being really careful? I just wasn't. That was loud. Okay. It's not loud anymore. Okay. Where was I?
The DNA inside your veins, the fruits of life, it must remain the key to all the things that are and where we start to drag our feet along the path instead. And so look before you leave.
Okay, so I have a pretty hard limiter on it, and in a nutshell, this is what I'm doing. If the dynamic range is all going like this, I'm squashing the dynamic range so that it's always feeding into the distortion at a fairly constant level. So this is going to make the distortion effect on the vocal a much more even effect that's always going to sound the same. Distortion sounds different depending on how much you push into it. Just like if you see a guitar player turn the volume up on the guitar and it goes from super clean to super distorted, it's the same kind of a concept. So if you keep it at the same level and you feed it into that distortion, it's always going to give you the same distortion. If you want more of that ebb and flow and push and pull in your distortion, then don't limit it. Let it be a little bit more dynamic and let the distortion compress it. So I'll just run through some of my personal favorites. Decapitator is, you know, this is the shit. I find with Decapitator, one of the keys is this low cut. You got to get rid of some of the low end, and you'd be surprised at exactly how much you can get rid of. Let me give this a shot.
The DNA inside your veins, the fruits of life, it must remain the key to all the things that are and where we start to drag our feet along the path instead of finding out what's up ahead. So look before you leave, else you may find yourself along the narrative. The DNA inside your veins, the fruits of life, it must remain the key to all the things that are and where we start to drag our feet along the path.
Okay, so there's some super counterintuitive stuff going on here. I would never think to put the low cut up to basically what amounts to 2 o'clock. 1K is all the way up, but this looks like it should be doing much more. I don't know where it's at now. It's probably, I don't know, 400 or 500, but you can see it thin out the bottom, but it really clears up the focus of the vocal, cutting some of that low end out of the distortion. And then I trimmed just a little bit of the super fuzzy high end off of it, and then I was adjusting the tone a little bit. And then the last thing I did was I adjusted the wet dry balance. I do this a lot where I'll get it a little bit too distorted, and then I'll pull back just a touch on the wet dry balance and add some of the clean back to it. And you'll still get all that fuzz, but you'll get the clarity and the enunciation out of the clean. Okay, next is VMR. So I have 3 different ones set up here. You can kind of, stuff like this to me is flavors. I might find one of these 3 works better than the other 2 on a certain vocal, and that might be for whatever reason I go. And usually I would go with something like this because I'm using other plugins in this rack. This is the Slate virtual mix rack. And it would be more of a convenience thing. I mean, you know, they're great, but... Okay, so let me just go through these so you can hear them, and you can hear kind of the different flavors. Now, you'll also see on the Hollywood one, I've got the mix back to about 70%. So I'm oversaturating, and then I'm pulling some of the clean back into that signal on the second one. So I'm just going to play these 3 and let you hear them.
The DNA inside your veins, the fruits of life, it must remain the key to all the things that are and where we start to drag our feet along the path instead of finding out what's up ahead. So look before you leave, else you may find yourself along the narrative. The DNA inside your veins, the fruits of life, it must remain the key to all the things that are and where we start to drag our feet.
All right, and finally, the Neutron 2. This is just a preset, and it has nothing to do with vocals at all. I don't use presets. Oh, that's another, on the YouTube Mixing Night channel, we have, I think the one we put out last week was how to use presets. And I break down exactly how I use presets. So if you've always wanted to know, it's a really dope video. And this is the preset we found for vocals.
The DNA inside your veins, the fruits of life, it must remain the key to all the things that are and where we start to drag our feet along the path instead of finding out what's up ahead. So look.
Now, something like that, you know, that's a little bit harsh. So what I would do if I was mixing this would be I would start with that, and then I would just start fine tuning it, and I would maybe something like Soothe or Soothe 2 could pull some of the harshness out of it. Maybe it's an adjustment on the Neutron 2 itself. You know, every situation is kind of a slightly different thing to tackle, but hopefully that gives you some really good starters that can turn your weakness into a strength. Okay. John Francis asks, hey Ken, I've been a mixer for 20 years, but lately my low end has been suffering. Either it's too tubby or too washed out. I mix a lot of dense rock with heavy drop tune guitars, and they seem to fight with the bass constantly because of a lot of shared frequencies. What are some things I can do to clear it up? Okay. I might be able to show a little bit of this. I have the right session for it. I just don't know if I can kind of pull it up quickly. Here we go. So, to me, it's about the problem you're probably having is one solution might be to thin out the low end of the guitars a little bit, let the bass carry that, put the bass in the center, give it a little bit of drive, but let the kind of 150 to 300 really drive the note of the bass, and just make sure that there's enough down below it to kind of activate some subs if needed. Like in rock, you don't need a ton of low end to begin with, unless you're Imagine Dragons. It's nothing like urban. Let me see how we're looking here. So sorry. Sorry, the mic was off. Okay, so where was I? Thinning out the guitars. So the bass is fighting with your guitars a little bit too much. And what I do, this is the API across the guitars. Probably the same EQ across both. See, I'm pulling out a little bit of, like 500 is even. So I'm pulling out a little bit of 250, pulling out 125 and 63. And I'm dipping 4K a little bit to give room for the vocals. But down here is where, so the bass would probably be somewhat of an inverse curve of this if I was going to do that. And the bass is in the middle, and then the guitars are on the sides. So it's really about the possibly lightening up the weight of the guitars. The other thing that you might experiment with if you're working with bands is different gauges of strings. I've recently come to discover that sometimes with heavy guitars, the lighter the gauge of string, the heavier the part actually sounds in the mix. It's the weirdest thing, but I had a full demonstration of it, and I'm convinced. So you might try, I don't know what drop D, whatever the lightest you can carry in drop D, that's what I would try. Okay, where am I at? My God. Okay, I'm gonna get some ear training for you guys. I can't even believe it's 9:30. Jesus Christ. All right, time is just flying. Okay, I'm not gonna get to everything. I'm gonna play you a. This is the. So I'm TikTok famous. I don't know if I ever played this. But this went viral, well over 1 million. We had 100,000 or so likes on it, and we woke up one morning. This Toronto artist named Talk was here working with me on it, and we shot this for you. I'm just gonna shut up and play it. It's hilarious.
Hey Ken, what's your favorite project you ever worked on?
Favorite? Probably Cheetah Girls. Yeah.
Cheetah Girls. Yeah.
I love that so much. So this is a cautionary tale, encouragement. You know, Talk has been on TikTok for a while. He's got, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 videos up there, maybe more. And they've all had a little bit of action, but nothing has come close to 1 million. And out of the blue, here he's got 1 million. And now he's got a new subset of eyes that are looking for his content, that are following him. And now he's building a fan base. So, you know, if you're not on TikTok yet, you might seriously consider getting on that platform. It is where things seem to be moving, and where fans are finding their music, and where labels are searching for the next artist. So keep in mind. So, yeah, I so love that. Okay, ear training. Where is... Come on. I will find my ear training in a moment. Where is it? Just keep the in the booth. Just keep the screen off of the thing, and I'll. All right. Let me see if I can find this sucker. Ear training. Boom. Okay. Let me take some chat roll while this is booting up. From the chat roll, G. Harrison asks, when mixing in the box, what do you do to give you the sound that the SSL gives you? The sound of the SSL is really more of a tactile experience. It's not the sound itself, because I think the sound is completely replicatable. It's the way that you get the sound. It's the experience of being able to pull the faders up and adjust the pans and adjust, like, the world is your oyster. It's all right in front of you. So you can kind of survey everything much better. You don't have to mix with your eyes and a mouse so much. It's just a totally different experience. And that is, to me, where the sonics come in. Okay. Carl asks, Ken, what was the first major song you engineered? What's your favorite major song you've engineered? And what's the most recent major song? Most recent, I mixed 3 songs on the BTS Map of the Soul 7 album, including the first single that did like 70 million views on YouTube. So that was a good one. The first big credit I had was Color Me Bad. I don't know if anybody remembers them, but I did a Color Me Bad. And favorite song I've ever engineered, Skrizzly's stuff would definitely compete. We have a blast making his records. I don't know. I mean, I love making records, so I don't know that I could ever pick a favorite. But Me and You from Skrizzly Adams, or Young Man from Skrizzly Adams, is certainly some of my faves. And Too Close to Fire as of Friday is going to be right on that list. Okay, Miguel Diaz from the chat roll asks, hey Ken, how did you find Des Rocs, and what was the reason to work with him? He found me. At the time, he was signed to Epic Records in a group called Secret Weapons, and I mixed the Secret Weapons album for him and Epic. And then the label dropped Secret Weapons, and he was looking to do a side project, and he had this vision for it, and he brought it to me and played me a bunch of songs, and we talked about it, and we decided it was, me and Brent heard where Des Rocs was going with the stuff. He wasn't called Des Rocs at the time. That project, we basically built that project from complete scratch. Nothing didn't exist. It was a handful of ideas up to what it is now. And why? I mean, you could just tell there was magic shit. It's incredibly talented. The songs, you could tell the songs were going to be great. We all clicked. It was definitely worth all the same reasons that we are working with Skrizzly. Okay, what? Oh yeah, ear training. Okay. Oh, Apollo Shade asks, I meant to show this. Apollo Shade asks, hey Ken, how many lead vocals versus background vocals do you like to use for the verses in hip hop songs? I'm gonna try and pull up Northside in a bit, but I think it's different for each song. It depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish and the mood and the vibes. And do you need answer backs, or do you need like a layer on top, or it's all different. I think that's super artist specific is the best way to answer that. Okay. So if you remember Bohemian Rhapsody, I broke down the intro vocals on Bohemian Rhapsody. That was some really sick shit. But I have since found just the acapella. I don't have the track outs for it, but I found the acapella for David Bowie and Queen, Under Pressure. And I wanted to show you some of the amazing vocal tricks that they're using to mix that song. Let me just show you here.
Pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man has fall under pressure. Pressure, pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man has fall under pressure.
Okay. In a few minutes, I'm going to do a reverb ear training. This is the predecessor to that. I probably should do this after because your ears will be more Yeah, let me do that. I'm going to do this after because your ears will be more dialed in, I hope. So, okay. If you got the newsletter for the show, you may have downloaded a PDF with reverb ear training examples. So I thought, ear training isn't always frequencies, it's other things. So I have created an ear training template. There's going to be, let's see, what are all the different reverb types? So I'm going to play you examples, and it's your job. This is what it is. I'm going to play you an example. You're going to tell me on your chart, write down what type of reverb you think it is. What do you think is the decay time of that reverb? And is that reverb mono or stereo? 3 things: type, time, mono or stereo. And the type, I think it's on that sheet, but it could be plate, hall, room, chamber, spring, nonlinear. I think I'm forgetting one, room or something. I don't know. So, okay. Here's the lead vocal dry. I'm going to play you the dry lead vocal. Then I'm going to play you the first reverb. Grab your sheet and mark down what you think this is. Type.
Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point?
Okay, so that's dry. Here's the first reverb example. What is it? How long? Mono or stereo?
Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point?
Example 2.
Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point?
This is number 2. What type? What time? Mono or stereo?
Is this the tipping point?
Example 3. Type, time, mono or stereo?
Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point?
Okay. Number 4 is a hi-hat. I'm going to play you the dry hat first, then I'll play you the reverb. Number 4, hat, reverb 1. Type, time, mono or stereo? All right. Number 5, hat number 2. You see how drastically a reverb choice can change the perception of your mix. Just the difference between these 2 reverbs on these hats are crazy. This is example 5, hat 2. example 6. I'll play you the dry snare first, and then I'll play you the wet. Oh. Okay, here's the first snare. I think this is, yeah, number 6. Type time, mono or stereo. Number 7, snare 2. And number 8, snare 3. All right. Number 9 and 10 are acoustic guitars. I'm going to play you the dry first, and then I'll play you the reverbs. Here's the dry. Okay, this is example 9, AC guitar 1. And last but not least, AC guitar 2. This is example 10. All right, how did you guys do? Get all of your totals together. I'm going to put up the answer key on screen in a moment. And let me know on the chat roll how you guys did. Where? Oh no, where's the key? Oh, here it is. Okay, here's on screen. Boom. Okay. I'm going to go through these and just play you these examples one more time so you can hear what each of them is that we went through. So, example 1 is a chamber, 3-second mono chamber.
Is this the tipping point? 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 Is this the tip?
Two, medium room.
Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point?
3, plate.
Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping point? Is this the tipping?
Hi-hat 1 is a hall, 3 seconds, mono. How are you guys doing on your own sheets so far? Second is a plate. Snare 1 is a spring. Three-second mono spring. You see that bounciness? That's like the telltale sign of a spring, is that bouncy wobbliness. It sounds like it's coming through a guitar amp. It's because guitar amps have real springs in them. Okay, the next one, snare is a long haul. Now we have the non-linear stuff. It's 80s fantastic. Acoustic 1 is a small hall in stereo. And acoustic 2 is a mono 4-second spring. Listen to the difference in feel. So you start getting an idea of just exactly how radically different you can shape the feel and sound of your mix just by which reverbs that you choose. So hopefully this ear training is helping you identify which ones. How did you do with it? Now I'm going to go back to Under Pressure, and we're going to see if we can identify these vocals.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man has fall under pressure.
Oh, who on the chat roll has a good guess at what effects we're listening to with Under Pressure? Okay, my best guesses are, I think it's a plate. It's either a plate or a chamber. It's really dense, but I'm pretty sure it's a plate. And if you hear, there's these tiny little echoes going through it real steady. And I think what they did was they probably fed the vocal into a mono eighth note-ish type of delay, like a 250 millisecond repeating delay, probably a PCM 42, and then fed only the return of the delay into a reverb. So you never actually hear the delay. You only hear the results of the delay going into the reverb and then what comes out of the reverb. And what you hear are these really kind of ghost flutters. See if you can pick up on those now that I've pointed them out.
Okay.
And you can hear, the reason I think this is a plate is because it carries, it's kind of bright and solid. It sounds like what he's singing carries through, and a hall tends to scatter the sound a little bit more and make it a bit more diffuse. But there's a section in the song that has no effect whatsoever. So I thought, unfortunately, it's a little bit like they're not singing very loud, but I'm going to try and match the, here, let me play the dry vocal.
Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work.
Okay, so I'm going to attempt to come up with similar vocal effects on that dry section and make it feel wet the same way that the previous section before that feels with its effect. Okay, so this is what I've come up with. I think it's a fairly long plate, which I think I have an EMT 140 dialed up at just under, it's about 3.5 seconds. Really bright, not too much low end on it. Let's see what this sounds like. I'm going to put some evening on it just so it feels.
Okay. Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work.
All right, we're cooking with gas already. So that plate really makes that soft section sound good. Now I'm going to add some echoes. Where is it? Boom, echoes.
Okay. Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work.
And I would just keep cinching this back until it gets to the point where I don't really perceive it, but it still is doing something really cool. So you can hear I'm feeding just a little bit of this into the mix where I don't really hear it much. And then there's this other section right after this. Listen to this.
Why? 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 Why?
Okay, this is some sort of a chamber or early reflections. And the thing that I came closest to with it was this UAD reflection engine, which I love. So this is basically like the first reflections off of the wall is what it's simulating.
Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work. Turned away from it all.
So what they did with this mix, in different sections, they built different moods. Sometimes it's really close and intimate and dry and right up in your face. Sometimes they only put this like reflection engine on it. And then sometimes they exploded into that massive reverb with a little bit of delay. You can find this online, so just go to YouTube and look for Under Pressure Acapella. I would encourage you to listen to it, and especially with headphones on. The way they did it was just so sick. And you can really hear how high quality microphones they're using and what the difference in using a great tube is. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to show you a couple other things. So here's my whole chain on this. I added the Roland Dimension D UAD. This thing, I have an analog version of this sitting over in my rack. This is kind of one of those vintage pieces of gear that's stuck around and retained and gained in value.
Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work. Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a...
I have a chamber fired up.
Turned away from...
So I have a really short chamber, and I was trying to... At first, I was trying to simulate the reflections with a short chamber, but it was still too long, and I had to go to the reflections. But I like what the short chamber does. I basically... Back to the... here it is. Capital chambers. Boom. Decay minimum. Put the microphones real close to the speakers. Rolled off all the bass, and kind of boosted the highs, and then I get this.
Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work.
And all of them in.
Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work. Turned away from it all like a blind man.
Okay, so I think I'm going to have to go to the Sprint mix. Actually, I don't even know what... I don't think I decided on a second Sprint mix. All right, who on the chat roll? What do you want me to mix? Challenge me. Let's see. In the meantime, I will take some chat roll. Kate Vaughn asks, hey, Ken, how about on the producer side, go for a label... Oh, I see. Try to become... Kate is asking, should she be try and become an in-house producer at a label? There's not many of them, actually. That's not really how it works. If you were an artist signed to a label, would you want the in-house producer at that label producing you? Probably not. You would want somebody who is so badass that they don't need to be on staff anywhere. That's, you know... let's see. What's the chat rolls? Everybody's saying Temptation. Okay, fuck it. All right. Shit, I gotta find it first. Don't put the screen on. Let me see if I can find the Temptation Sprint mix. All right, I'll mix Temptation. I fucking love that song. It's the end of the night. Why not? So I'm gonna mix Temptation. This is Sugar Jesus featuring KRN. If I can, here we go, Jedi Sprint mix. I may have to undo all my work here first. Oh, this is going to be a fucking challenge. Thanks for hanging tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I wish I could have paid more attention to the chat roll. I can't even believe it's been almost 2 hours. Jesus, where the time goes. Coco Scott Music asks, can you explain how to use multiple reverbs on female vocals? I think what I just showed you is probably going to help you out tremendously. Hopefully that's kind of the thing. All right. What else do we have? Yeah, I didn't get to a shit ton of the questions tonight. So if you're paying attention, I didn't get to your question. I'm probably going to do like an IG marathon on my IG story and answer a bunch of these. Really sorry I didn't get to more, but I wanted to show more tonight. Let's see. Do a couple more before I get to the Sprint mix. K Loopta 127 asks, "Hey Ken, have you ever been asked to stem out or re-stem out tracks for an artist's live sound engineer so they can have the album elements in the live mix? How do you handle that?" Yeah, that happens all the time. It's usually the music director for the artist will reach out to the producer, or they'll connect. And the music director usually tells you, "Hey, I need these tracks, or I need these stems, or this group, or wherever." And it can be as little or as, it depends on what the music director wants. It really comes down to what they want and how they want to represent that show live. That's their job. Hey, it's Mixing Night YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Set your notifications for the video we're dropping on Sunday, and for 2 weeks from now. I'll be more organized in 2 weeks, and I'm going to have a big giveaway, and it's going to be a banana show. Okay. Temptation. You see I'm stalling, right? This is a fucking bitch of a song to mix, but it's a lot of fun. Okay. Well, this is it. Oh. All right. Fuck. All right, 10 minutes on the clock. Oh, here we go. All right, thank you all for hanging out tonight. This is officially the launch of the Mixing Night broadcast. It's been Q&A with Ken up till now, but now it's going to be Mixing Night with Ken, and I'm going to keep trying to bring you the 2 hours of take you away from life. All right, 10 minutes on the clock. I'm going. Thank you for hanging out tonight. This is Temptation, Sugar Jesus, featuring KRN. This is a Sprint mix. Boom. Good night. Sorry, it was sounding a bit weird. I had my microphone on, but it's off now.
you come, you never leave. Want you to be the come now, follow me. Let me be the air you breathe. I'm your fantasy. Once you come, you never leave. Want you to be the come now, follow me. Let me be the air you breathe. I'm your fantasy. Once you come, you never leave. You to be the come now, follow me. Let me want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you.
Steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell.
Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you want you to be there to feel me get inside. Come now, follow me. Let me be the air you breathe. I'm your fantasy. Once you come, you never leave. Want you to be the
Give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Temptation, temptation, give your love. Temptation, give your love. Temptation, give your temptation, give your love to me. Temptation, give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Let me be the air with.
Whew. All right. Hell of a night. Wow, we went past 2 hours. That's crazy. Anybody still on the broadcast, thank you very much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. I will be back in 2 weeks. I'll try and bring the noise again in 2 weeks. Please, if you're enjoying the broadcast, tell your studio friends. I would love to see more people on this and really build Mixing Night out to a great community. So join the community, check out the Discord channel, set your notifications, all those things. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Here is my Sprint mix of Sugar Jesus featuring KRN Temptation. Good night. Not offline balance. No, I want to hear this nice and loud. All right, I'm going to turn the speakers up dumb loud and ride out the rest of the night. Good night.
Come and follow me. Let me be the air you breathe. I'm your fantasy. Once you come, you never leave. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head. Hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself. Put you under my spell. Got you under my spell.
Temptation, give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Let me be the air you breathe.
Come and follow me. I've been flowing through your dreams. Give me what I need. Your devotion endlessly. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head. Hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself. Put you under my spell. Got you under my spell.
Temptation, give your love to me.